Whew, very hot day today.
Hey guys, it's Rory and that's Alex and we're from searchandshow.com. So today we have three smartphones at three drastically different price points.
Wow, that's the wrong show.
Oh, that's not what we're doing? Okay. So you may have seen that the Galaxy Note9 was just launched, I believe last week.
Yep.
And we happen to have one here. So we were wondering, how does the camera stack up? Because they didn't really talk about it too much on stage. So we gathered up the best phones that we could find, which is the iPhone 10 and the Huawei P20 Pro, which were in our office, and we decided to do a simple camera comparison here in beautiful Masjid Jamid, which by the way looks awesome since the last time I've been here. Yeah, so that's it. So we're gonna walk around, we're gonna grab some shots and hopefully have a nice camera comparison coming your way. I don't know about you, but I feel very professional with this microphone setup.
Alright, let's get to work.
Alright, let's go. Before we get down to testing, let's take a quick look at the contenders. First up is the brand new Galaxy Note9. Although the smartphone's 12-megapixel dual camera system is pretty much identical to the hardware on the Galaxy S9 Plus, it is by no means dated. After all, it is still one of only a handful of smartphones that feature a variable aperture camera. To that sophisticated hardware, Samsung also made a couple of tweaks. Most notably is the handset's brand new AI Scene Optimizer technology, which has the ability to recognize 20 different scenes and adapt the camera settings to those scenes. Of course, if we're talking about AI scene optimization, our second contender, the Huawei P20 Pro, pretty much wrote the book on that. This triple camera beast can recognize over 500 different scenes in 19 separate categories. What's more, it is still the highest rated smartphone on renowned camera benchmark DxOMark. That said, this device is a couple of months old by now, so the newer kid on the block might have the edge. However, if we're talking about age, our third contender, the iPhone 10, is definitely the oldest device here. Due for a refresh very soon, this device still features Apple's best smartphone camera, and it's definitely no slouch. Known for its more natural-looking photos compared to the P20 Pro's high-contrast, high-vibrancy approach, many die-hard fans still favor the iPhone X's images even to this day. Needless to say, this is definitely a battle of some of the best smartphone cameras in the market right now. The question is, who will come out on top? To find out, we devised a simple camera comparison to hit on as many of the main scenarios as we could. First, we wanted to see how well these smartphones could capture fine details in a sharpness test. It's a good thing the area had plenty of exposed brick walls, so we picked one and grabbed a few photos. Then there is the question of HDR performance. Flagships these days tend to have very good auto HDR, so it will be interesting to see how these devices stack up to each other. We picked an alley with lots of shadows and even framed the sun right in our shot for maximum difficulty. Next up was the zoom test. All three handsets have a combination of optical and digital zooming, so we stood at one spot in Dataran Merdeka and gradually zoomed in onto the clock tower of the Sultan Abdul Samad building. Moving on, we thought it would be interesting to see how these smartphones handled a close-up or macro situation by taking a photo of this really tiny white flower. So we're about halfway through the camera comparison, and so far all the phones are doing pretty well. It was until we came up with the macro test where we tried to focus on this really small flower, one of those really small white flowers. That was when the iPhone and the P20 started struggling, but the Note9 was still okay, not bad. It got focus almost every single time. Thoughts?
Pretty good.
Let's go. Finally, our last two tests were to see how well these handsets took portrait mode photos, both with the main camera and the selfie shooter. Since all three employed a different setup, it will be quite interesting to see how they differ.
So we have taken all the photos we need, I believe, for this camera comparison, and now we end our day in the beautiful Dataran Merdeka, surrounded by tourists who are eager to capitalize on the beautiful sunset lighting for their precious selfies. So what do you think of the camera performance so far, Alex?
I think all three did pretty well, but there's only one way to find out.
And that's to look at them on the big screen. So, back to the studio. So, it's the next day, as you can tell by my fresh new t-shirt. We are back in the office and ready to look at some photos. So yesterday, after we shot a whole bunch of photos, we waited for the sun to set, and then we took another set of photos just to see how well these smartphones would perform in low light. And the results were pretty interesting. Besides that, we also did a quick little video test just to see how these cameras performed in 4K resolutions and at 1080p resolutions, to see their stabilization and image quality and stuff like that, which we will get to in a bit. So I'm very excited to see what these photos look like. Let's get into it. First up, in the sharpness test, we have the iPhone's photo. Overall, I think it did a pretty good job, as the image is sharp and very natural looking. However, if you punch into the arch, you can see that the phone wasn't able to capture the lines between the white tiles. If we move over to the Note 9's shot, those lines are more obvious. The photo as a whole is also very sharp, though the contrast and saturation is much lower than the iPhone. The P20 Pro's photo, on the other hand, is a little overexposed, but more than that, it also doesn't pull as much details from the arch as the other two smartphones. Overall, sharpness around the bricks is also underwhelming, so it definitely falls short in this test. Of the three, I think the Note 9 performs the best, with the iPhone a fairly close second, thanks to its more saturated colors, bringing out the definition in the individual bricks. Moving on to HDR performance, the key thing to look out for here is how well each camera retains details in both the highlights and shadows. On the iPhone X, you can see the blue tint of the sky and the details of the clouds despite the bright sun being in the way. The overall image is also well exposed without too much of a sacrifice on color saturation. However, the image does lose out on details in the shadow with less definition around the trees. The Note 9, on the other hand, produces a much better image with better performance in the shadows while still retaining the details in the sky. That said, the image does look more processed than the iPhone X, and there is a tinge of red from what looks like a little bit of lens flare. Though, if we're talking about image processing, the P20 Pro has both of them beat. The details in the buildings in this image looks crisp and clean with more vibrant colors. However, that's at the cost of details in the highlights, as the sky here is completely blown out. Personally, I'd also give the win here to the Note 9, with the iPhone X again taking a close second. Then we come to the zoom test. Each phone has some degree of optical zooming, so we analyzed what the images looked like at each zoom stop. On the iPhone and Note 9, the first stop is at 2x optical zoom, while the P20 Pro gives a little more reach with its 3x optical zoom. All three images look nice and sharp with no noticeable loss in image quality, though I will say the Note 9 has the most pleasant photo here. Although the P20 Pro produces a razor-sharp image, its exposure and white balance are completely off. Move over to the second stop at 10x, and the difference in detail is immediately obvious. While both the iPhone and Note 9 have what I would call usable photos, the P20 Pro certainly has the edge here. Add that to the fact that the P20 Pro also has an additional 5x hybrid zoom, and it becomes the clear winner despite its white balance being a little off. Next up, macro. In this test, both the iPhone and the P20 Pro struggled to pull focus. The Note 9, on the other hand, was flawless here.
Although a little oversaturated, I think the Note 9 has the most pleasant shot here, so that's the phone I'm giving this win to. Finally, before we get into the bokeh-licious portrait mode test, let's take a look at how these cameras perform in low light. Right off the bat, on the Note 9 and iPhone X, you'll notice a lot of luminance noise in the sky. Sharpness in the middle around the text also leaves a lot to be desired, though I think between the two, the Note 9 has the nicer shot. That is, until the P20 Pro comes along and blows them both out of the water. Thanks to its awesome night mode, there's hardly any noise in the photo and the entire scene looks well exposed. Yes, it is a tad overprocessed for my taste, and the subtle gradient in the sky of this image was imperceptible to my eye when I was on location, but to think these results came from a smartphone camera that was handheld is nothing short of amazing. Easy win here for the P20 Pro. Now let's take a look at portrait mode on all three phones, starting with the back camera. Right off the bat, I think all three devices have good edge detection and do a good job tracing my outline. As far as quality of bokeh, I think the Note 9's looks the worst, but that's something you can tweak in post with the handset's live focus function. Ours was set on max. It's worth noting that while the iPhone and Note 9 utilize their telephoto lens for portrait mode, the P20 Pro does not, hence the slightly different angle. Personally, I think the iPhone X took the best shot here. Not only is its bokeh the most pleasant, but the device absolutely nails my skin tone in this lighting. Flip over to the selfie side of things and the iPhone X turned Alex into a beetroot. A little too much red there, buddy. Between the Note 9 and the P20 Pro, I'd give the point to the Note 9 because of its more accurate edge detection, but I think both have the beautification dialed a little too high. And that's it for the photo segment of our camera comparison. Right now, the scoreboard reads 4 points to the Note 9, 2 points to the P20 Pro, and 1 point to the iPhone X. Now, let's move on over to video, where Alex will give you the rundown.
When it comes to videos, the story is a little different. If you record in 4K, only the iPhone X and Note 9 have video stabilization. As you can see, the P20 Pro is super shaky in 4K and is only stabilized if you switch the recording to 1080p resolution. In normal daylight scenes, the iPhone X seems to be the best here, as the footage is quite steady considering the fact that we recorded these videos while walking. The Note 9 is not bad as the P20 Pro, but there is a noticeable jittering, which can sometimes render clips unusable. As far as image quality in daylight goes, all three phones have very different image characteristics. The iPhone X has natural look with nice colors, a sharp image, and not a lot of sharpening. The Note 9 on the other hand produces a more washed out image, but is much sharper and brighter. However, the post-processing also makes the noise in the darker areas more obvious. Finally, the P20 Pro produces the most saturated footage, with a far more processed look and a higher contrast. However, it doesn't have a stabilization at 4K. The P20 Pro doesn't have a crop factor, resulting in a much wider shot. In low light, the iPhone X struggles with exposure. The highlights are clipped and the footage is also very noisy. It's also a very soft image, so it almost looks out of focus. While the Note 9's video is an improvement, it is still rather noisy and it suffers a lot from the same issues as the iPhone X does. Huawei's P20 Pro definitely produces the best image here. Exposure is pretty good and the footage isn't nearly as noisy as the other two. Details are also more apparent and you can actually see the tiny insects flying around the lamppost. Overall, for the video comparison test, the iPhone X gains 2 points, one for image stabilization and the other for daylight scene. The Huawei P20 Pro on the other hand gained 1 point for low light scene.
My winner for this camera comparison has to be the Samsung Galaxy Note 9, and there are two big reasons why. Number one is camera experience. I like that the Note 9 is a very snappy shooter, so it's quick to pull focus, it's quick to take the shot, and I like that I can always rely on it when I need to.
Number 2 has to do with image quality. Yes, the P20 Pro has impressive low-light performance. I mean, that night mode shot is actually ridiculous, and I still have a hard time believing that it came from a smartphone camera. And yes, the iPhone X has nice photos too, but to me, the Note 9's photos look the best. Not only do I see potential to push them a little bit more in post, but I also like the way the photos look straight out of camera. The P20 Pro, I can see it as being useful for people who like that over-edited look, but they don't actually want to learn how to edit. But I think that Note 9 really strikes that nice balance between slightly processed with more natural look overall. So yeah, Note 9 for me, definitely.
For me, initially I was leaning towards the iPhone X because I tend to shoot a lot of videos on my mobile device. And if you follow us on soychinchat.com, most of the recap videos at events were all shot and edited on the iPhone X. And the reason why we picked that is because it has true-to-life colors, great stabilization, and the iMovie app is super powerful for us to edit videos on the go. But as a daily driver, of course I shoot more photos than videos. And because of that, my choice would be the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. It's quick to launch, super snappy, it has great picture quality as you can see from the comparison photos. And there's also the live focus mode, which I think is super flexible. You can adjust the amount of bokeh and can tap on the place where you want to focus on, which I think is much better than the iPhone X.
Wow! I bet you didn't expect that phone to win. Alright, but we love to hear what you guys think. Which phone did you think took the best photos? Let us know in the comments below. And that's it for this video. We hope you guys enjoyed watching it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to know what kind of gear we use to film videos like these, like where to get this professional looking wireless microphone, all the links will be in the video description. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, click on the bell icon so you know whenever we post a brand new video. And yeah, that's it. Check out soychinchat.com for refreshing tech news, and we will see you in the next video. Bye!
Bye.